Chapter 3. By the time summer arrived, most people in Riverton had stopped talking about Ethan Harper altogether. And honestly, that bothered Ethan more than the insults ever had. People think hatred is the opposite of respect. But it isn't. Indifference is. At least when people criticize you, they're still paying attention. But Riverton had already made up its mind as far as the town was concerned. Ethan Harper belonged to the past. A cautionary tale. A guy who had everything and lost it. The end. Life moved on. The factories kept running. The football team started a new season. The coffee shop downtown still filled up every morning with people, discussing everyone else's business. And Ethan, he became invisible except to Maya at some point. Neither of them could remember exactly when those visits became routine. Sometimes Maya brought coffee. Sometimes Ethan saved her a seat on the porch before she even arrived. Neither one talked about it. They just started expecting the other person to be there, and somehow that felt normal. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they simply sat on the porch, watching freight trains roll past while drinking cheap coffee from paper cups. There was something comforting about that silence. Neither of them had to pretend. Neither of them had anything left to prove. At least that's what Maya thought. Because Ethan was hiding something, not out of dishonesty, out of caution. Every night after she left, he continued working on the project inside the notebook. The notebook had grown into several notebooks, then folders, then spreadsheets, then prototypes. The idea was simple, at least on the surface. Riverton's economy had changed. Most furniture companies were still trying to sell expensive products to shrinking middle-class customers. That Ethan had spent months studying something nobody else seemed interested in. Families who repaired furniture instead of replacing it. Single parents furnishing apartments on tight budgets. Retired couples living on fixed incomes. Young people buying second-hand pieces online. The market. Everyone ignored the market. Everyone assumed wasn't profitable. The market Ethan understood better than anyone. Because for the first time in his life, he was living exactly like them. The funny thing about losing everything is that it teaches you things money never can. Still, having a good idea and getting people to believe in it were two very different things. And that became painfully obvious 3 weeks later. Every year, Riverton hosted something called Founders Day. Part town festival, part business showcase. Part excuse to eat barbecue and watch live music. Local companies rented booths. Entrepreneurs pitched ideas. Families filled the streets. It was one of those small-town traditions everyone complained about but secretly loved. This year would be different. Because Ethan decided to attend, not as a spectator, as a participant. When Maya first heard the idea,
I'm going to attend Founders Day.
she nearly laughed.
Are you really sure about that?
I'm serious. They hate you. I know. They'll make fun of you. I know that too. So why do it? Ethan shrugged, then he smiled. Not confidently, not arrogantly, just calmly. Because eventually you have to stop rebuilding in private. That answer stayed with her. A few seconds passed. Then Ethan looked at her. Will you be there? Maya frowned. At Founders Day? Ethan nodded. Yeah. She smiled. Of course. Ethan smiled back. Good. It was a simple exchange. But for reasons neither of them could explain, it mattered. The morning of Founders Day arrived bright and hot. By 10 o'clock Main Street was packed. Food trucks lined the sidewalks. Children ran between. Booths stuck. Country music drifted from loudspeakers. Everything looked normal until people noticed Ethan. The reaction was immediate. Heads turned. Conversations paused. You could almost feel it moving through the crowd, like a wave. There he is, Ethan Harper, back from the dead. Some people looked curious. Others looked amused. A few looked annoyed. But almost nobody looked supportive. His booth sat near the edge of the event. Small, simple, no flashy banners, no expensive displays, just a folding table covered with sketches, product samples, and a sign reading, Affordable furniture for real families. The name itself triggered laughter. One man actually stopped walking just to read it twice, then laughed again. Several others joined him. Ethan ignored them first. For nearly 2 hours he stood there explaining his concept to anyone willing to listen. Most weren't. Many walked away before he finished speaking. Some openly mocked the idea. One local business owner told him, "Maybe focus on paying your debts before trying to save the furniture industry." The people nearby laughed. Ethan simply nodded, then moved on. Maya watched all of this happen, and every insult made her angrier because nobody seemed interested in the actual idea. They only cared about who was presenting it. Then things got worse, much worse. Around lunchtime, Victor Lang arrived. Now, if you've ever lived in a small town, you know exactly the type of person Victor was: successful, charismatic, respected, and fully aware of it. Victor owned the largest logistics company in the county. He donated to local charities, sponsored youth sports teams, appeared in newspaper photos. People loved him, or at least they thought they did. Victor walked toward Ethan's booth with a smile that never reached his eyes. Several local business leaders followed behind him, including reporters, including town officials. Victor knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't there to learn. He was there to perform. "Ethan Harper," Victor announced loudly. "So, good to see you're still trying." The crowd laughed. Ethan remained calm. "Good to see you too, Victor." Victor picked up one of the product samples, turned it over, examined it dramatically, and smirked. "This is your big comeback." More laughter. People started gathering. Phones appeared. Everyone sensed a show. And Victor delivered exactly that. For the next several minutes he dismantled Ethan publicly. Or at least tried to. Questioning his experience. Questioning his credibility. Questioning his intelligence. Every statement, carefully designed to humiliate. Every joke timed perfectly. Every insult disguised as business advice. The crowd loved it. Some people laughed harder than they should have. Others stayed silent, which was somehow worse. Then Victor crossed a line. He looked at Ethan's prosthetic leg, paused, and smiled. "You know what your problem is?" Ethan said nothing. Victor continued. "You keep trying to stand where you don't belong." The meaning wasn't subtle. The crowd went quiet. Even they knew it was cruel. For a brief second, Ethan's expression changed. Just slightly. Enough for Maya to notice, enough to reveal the pain underneath. Victor saw it too, and that made him bolder. That's when Maya stepped forward. She hadn't planned to. She wasn't trying to be brave. She was simply tired of watching good people become targets. Tired of seeing cruelty rewarded. Tired of everyone pretending this was acceptable. "That's enough." The words came out louder than she expected. The crowd turned. Victor looked surprised, then amused. "And who are you?" The question sounded innocent. It wasn't. Maya recognized the tone. Immediately, the same tone people used when they wanted to remind someone of their place. "I'm someone who's actually listened to him," Victor chuckled. "No offense, but last time I checked, you're a janitor." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Maya felt her face burn, but Victor wasn't finished. "Business strategy isn't exactly your field." Victor laughed softly. "Then again, maybe that's why the two of you get along." He glanced between Ethan and Maya. One failed businessman. One janitor. Quite the power couple. Several people laughed. The humiliation spread through her chest like fire. For a moment she wanted to leave, to disappear, to avoid the embarrassment. Then she looked at Ethan, and something unexpected happened. He looked angrier about her humiliation than his own. That changed everything. Because suddenly, Maya realized she wasn't standing there for him anymore. She was standing there for herself. For every person who'd ever been dismissed because of their job title. For every person treated like they weren't smart enough to matter. So she took a breath, looked directly at Victor, and said the one thing nobody expected. Maybe that's why I listened. I know what it's like when people decide your worth before they know your name. The crowd fell silent, real silence. Not awkward silence. Thinking silence. Victor's smile faded slightly, only slightly, but Ethan noticed. For the first time all afternoon, Victor didn't have a response ready. And for the first time all afternoon, people weren't looking at Ethan, they were looking at him. The moment passed quickly, but something had shifted, not enough to change the town. Not yet, but enough to plant doubt, enough to make people wonder, enough to make Ethan realize something important. He had spent months trying to prove people wrong. Maybe it was time to prove something else instead. That evening, Maya sat quietly in Ethan's truck as they drove back toward the railroad tracks. For several miles, neither of them said much. The town lights slowly disappeared behind them. Finally, Ethan spoke. "I'm sorry." Maya looked over. "For what?" He kept his eyes on the road. "For letting Matt. You didn't. I stood there." His voice was lower now. "I should have said something sooner." Maya shook her head. "You were dealing with enough already. That's not an excuse." The truck fell silent. A freight train rumbled in the distance. Then Maya smiled, faintly. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "Victor thought he was embarrassing me." Ethan glanced over. "He was, maybe." She shrugged. "But he also showed everyone exactly who he is." For the first time that day, Ethan laughed. A real laugh. Not forced. Not polite. The kind Maya hadn't heard often enough, and as she listened, she realized something that made her unexpectedly nervous. The thing she feared losing wasn't her reputation, it was these moments. That night, after everyone went home, Ethan sat alone at his kitchen table, the same table where everything had started. The notebook lay open in front of him. For a long time, he stared at a single page as he reached for his pen. His thoughts briefly drifted back to Founders Day 2. Victor, to the crowd, to Maya, standing alone when nobody else stepped forward. Then he opened the notebook. Because some people fight for revenge, Ethan was about to fight for something else. A future worthy of the people who still believed in him. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel,